This Apple device was discontinued in the month of May of 2022. Which Apple device is this? Let's find out. This is the iPhone 13 Pro and it's the latest iPhone as of May of 2022. It is a very nicely machined device, very well assembled, very nice steel bezel with a matte glass finishing, very capable cameras, and it has a beautiful 120Hz OLED screen. But one thing it doesn't have is it doesn't have a 3.5mm jack. So if you have an analog headphone that requires a 3.5mm jack, you will need an adapter to adapt from the Lightning port to a 3.5mm analog port before you are able to use those headphones. So in a day and age where everyone has a smart device in the form of a smartphone which can play any music that you want, is this device here still relevant? So this is the iPod Touch. The iPod has been around for 21 years. Apple has discontinued the iPod Touch as of May 2022. This is the last surviving iPod in a generation where Apple claims to love music. So this is a brand new iPod Touch 2022. This is iPod Touch 7th generation. Now, the 6th generation has a much older A8 CPU, but this has a A10 Fusion processor, which is much faster. Now, I'm going to unbox this. I'm not great at unboxing, but here we go. I just got this in the mail as of today. And there you go. This is not a picture. This is the iPod Touch itself. This is a plastic casing, very unlike what Apple is shipping with nowadays, which is all the paper boxes. But it makes for a nice casing. I don't think I'll be throwing this away. And there you go. But oh my God, this is light. This is really, really light. And this is really, really small. First impression, super, super light device. This is extremely light. Very small screen, 4 inches diagonally, as opposed to the 6.1 inch on the iPhone 13 Pro. And definitely a lot slimmer. So they've removed the 3.5mm jack on the iPhones because it takes up space, right? But in a device that is slimmer than the iPhone 13 Pro, they've kept the 3.5mm jack. So what gives? There's a speaker grill here. It uses Lightning connector. Some of the earlier iPod Touch, they were still using the 30-pin Apple connector. It has a back-facing camera. It also has this cutout for the signals to pass through the aluminum body. And on the back, it says iPod, right? So unmistakably, this is an iPod device that plays music primarily. So let's just power this device on and let's see. You don't power on with the home button. You power on with the on-off switch, which is located at the top of the device. So you just press on here. The Apple logo should come up. Yep. Oh, this is a very nice, cutesy, small screen. 4 inches. I don't remember a 4-inch screen in a very, very long time. Volume control buttons up and down here. Interesting. The lamination on the screen, you can see that the screen is quite a bit deeper inset into the body. So it looks further away. Oh, low power, low battery, 20% remaining. Okay, let's see. We want to charge this. The screen is actually very nice and clear still. So it looks like a Retina screen still. Well, this device was first launched in the year of 2019. So by that time, there were no low resolution non-Retina display anymore. And because there's no battery, we need to charge it, right? Let's see what else they get with it. Okay. Oh, Apple stickers. Very small Apple stickers. Very cute. I think it fits on the MacBook Pro. Well, and the USB-A to Lightning cable for charging. And the infamous earpods. And this should be the 3.5mm version. Yep, that is the 3.5mm jack there. Okay. Looks like I won't be using this as well. Not as much. Okay, let's put it back. I'm gonna keep it as pristine and as mint as possible, seeing that this is the last iPod Touch that is ever going to be manufactured. All right. So we'll charge it up and we'll get back into another video in just a while. So the iPod has had a career run of more than 2 decades, spanning 21 years since it was first introduced in 2001. Well, considering it's just May of 2022, maybe not a full 21 years, but still spanning more than 2 decades. And I don't think the same can be said of many products in today's electronic world that has a career run spanning 2 decades. So when it was first introduced in 2001, Steve Jobs was the person introducing it, and it was meant to address the love of music. And that was at a time when a lot of people were still listening to CDs. Those shiny disc-like things, if you still remember what that looks like. Today, everybody is just streaming their music and they barely own any physical media. So I'd just like to know, what are you listening to? I mean, myself, I have been streaming my music and I have not touched my CDs for a long time. There used to be a time when I lined these walls with CDs, but no longer. I think I got rid of them or I threw them away. I tried to give them away, nobody wanted it. So the first iPod that was introduced, it had an LCD screen, but it was black and white LCD screen. There's no color screen. It had a click wheel. So the click wheel was pretty iconic for an iPod at that time. It was very intuitive to use, very easy to scroll through the songs, including the listing. And it was based off a mechanical hard drive. So it was capable of storing quite a bit of information. The first versions were like 5 and 10 gigabyte, but subsequently it went up to 160, and I suspect maybe there was even a 320 gigabyte drive. I don't know. But today you can get those modded to put up to a 2 terabyte flash drive inside as well, in the form of an SD card. So this Touch that I'm holding in my hands, this iPod Touch, is the 7th generation of the iPod Touch. The iPod Touch is loosely based around what an iPhone looks like. This is actually a new unit. I just got this morning, and when I ordered it, when I decided to buy it, I just thought that, it's gonna look like that, just like what an iPhone looks like, right? But when I opened it up and I held it in my hands, it completely shocked me how light and small and slim, and just how swell this whole device is. It's so tiny as compared to whatever you have here. This is the iPhone Pro, 13 Pro, and it's not even the Max version. It sports a 6.1-inch screen. This is just a 4-inch screen. So in terms of processor, it's an A10 processor, not the newest. Of course, it's 4 generations behind whatever this is running on now. And in a way, it is sufficient for what it's supposed to do, because if you think about it, it has no 4G connectivity, no LTE connectivity. You won't actually be using it for majority of your day-to-day stuff, because when you're out and about without connectivity, this is basically just that. In fact, without 4G connectivity, without cellular connectivity, I really doubt its capability as a music player, because where are all your medias? Unless you're one of those who have been storing all your music files in hard drives, and then you can start transferring. But the capacity of this guy, the one I bought, is the 32 gigabyte version, so it doesn't store a lot, especially if you're going to be playing back the FLAC lossless or even the ALAC lossless, Apple lossless formats, because those files are ginormous and it really takes up quite a bit of space. So given that it runs the A10 mobile processor, you are also able to run iOS 15.4. So the version of the iOS here is actually up to date. I don't know whether they'll be updating it any further, because they have already end-of-line this product. So in other words, they aren't producing this product anymore. So it's quite unlikely that they will be releasing new feature updates on this. Probably in order to keep it in line with security requirements, they will probably push some updates through, but unlikely to be any feature updates. Bug fixes? Yeah, maybe, but I don't know, they probably won't fork another version of iOS for the iPod Touch, given that it's no longer going to be around. So I'm going to be setting this new iPod Touch with a new account, or rather a separate account that I don't usually use on a daily basis, and I will be connecting it to a new network so that I can experience the lightness of this device. After all, it's just an A10 processor, so if you want to run the more modern software, the more updated software, it might just lag a little bit. I have downloaded Spotify, I've downloaded Sonos S2 app, I've also downloaded the control apps for my lightings here in the studio, as well as this Elgato lightings, and it works, and it is actually a very handy device to be carrying around the house. I just cannot stress how thin and light and small, and it feels like nothing in your hands. It feels really, really light. If I recall correctly, this is like 88 grams, probably half the weight or even less than half the weight of your iPhone 13 Pro. If you're sporting the iPhone 13 Pro Max, you're probably running in excess of 200 grams, which is like 2.5 times heavier than this iPod Touch that I'm holding in my hands. It's so light, I feel like spinning it. Well, anyway, it's new, and I don't want to break this. I don't want to dent this. There is not going to be another replacement coming its way. I don't even know if people can repair it anymore. So why did I buy it? For a very trivial reason: FOMO. Fear of missing out. As of yesterday, there were only a few units left on Apple Store, and the 32GB version wasn't available. You had to actually pony up quite a lot more to get the 256GB version if you wanted it in the color of your choice. And luckily, I was able to find it on Amazon. I'm quite sure that if I check sometime today or tomorrow, it might already be out of stock. I managed to order it yesterday, and after ordering it yesterday, it got delivered this morning. So that's Amazon for you, right? So it's really just the fear of missing out that I'm getting this, because I do want to own a piece of history. This product, not this exact version, but this product line has been around for 2 decades. I want to say that I kind of grew through the years with this product. I've had different versions of the iPod, from the Nano to the Shuffle to the Classic to the Mini. No, maybe I didn't have the Mini, but you get the point. I went through a lot of versions. There were, I believe, maybe in excess of 20 different versions of the iPod as a music player. So this is the last one that's ever going to be produced, and I'm holding the latest in my hands. The latest being released 3 years ago in 2019. That's how latest it is. Now, the other less than trivial reason why I got this is, here you go. This is the 3.5mm analog headphone jack. Name another iOS device that has this jack. You can't, because anything that Apple is selling now for the iPhone, it has no 3.5mm jack. Even on the Pad OS for the iPad, there's only one other mobile device which sports the 3.5mm jack, and that is the standard iPad, right? Not the iPad Pro, not the iPad Mini. Even the iPad Mini had it removed. So only the iPad Standard Edition has a 3.5mm jack now. And after they kill this, that will be the only device left. The only other way that you want to get a headphone jack is to move to the Mac OS and the laptops. They still all spot it. But of course, you could go on to other Android devices. Well, actually, some of the Android devices, they have been taking out the headphone jacks as well. And one of the main reasons is saying that, well, because that jack takes up so much space. This iPhone 13 is way thicker. I would say maybe about 40-50% thicker than this iPod Touch. And yet, the iPod Touch has a 3.5mm. And maybe you can take a look here yourself, right? So I don't think that's a valid reason. So you saw me do that, right? I just flicked it around like it was nothing, because it really weighs next to nothing. And why do I want a 3.5mm headphone jack? Because I do keep some wired headphones around. I know this is the wireless audiophile channel, but I do keep wired headphones around because they actually sound good effortlessly, right? You're not constrained by Bluetooth. You're not constrained by bit rate of the wireless protocol that they are using. It's pure sound coming from an analog device. So with that, I would say that this also supports Bluetooth. So if you want to listen to your Bluetooth headphones, yeah, sure, you can do that. But I would say that if your Bluetooth headphone sucks in the first place and you were using it on the iPhone, now that you are moving it to the iPod Touch, which you think is a dedicated music device, it's not going to sound any better. But on the other hand, if you have one of these wired headphones around, and previously you were using it with your iPhone, which requires the use of an adapter, right? The Lightning to the 3.5mm adapter, then you could skip the whole inconvenience of having the adapter around. I do have the adapter. It is sitting around somewhere. I sometimes do lose it. I find it after a while, but it is just so inconvenient. This, you just plug it in straight away and there you go. So I have been thinking of going back to IEM's in-ear monitors, and in-ear monitors, they usually spot only 3.5mm phono jacks, and if you could plug that in directly, then basically you have a very high performance music player in your hands with the IEMs, everything in one slim package and very, very highly portable. But when it comes to IEM, you have to note that the hardware control for the volume here only goes in 16 steps from 0 to 100%. So if you're trying to control and fine-tune the volume of your IEM, that may not work very, very well. And the other thing that you have to take note of is that this is a very, very small device, right? So the headphone amplifier, the amplifier that is amplifying the sound that is coming out from the 3.5mm jack, might not be able to drive the power-hungry headphones. So those with high impedance, you've got to take note. I have a Sony. This is the Sony studio monitor. It's MDR7506. Very popular. It runs at an impedance of 63 ohms. So when I drive these with the iPod Touch and I'm listening to it, the sound is great, the volume is great, you can't max out the volume. Not that you want to, not that you should listen at high volumes, but I'm just saying that the amount of headroom that it has with the 63 ohms is more than adequate, more than sufficient. Now, this other headphone that I have here, this is a Bayer Dynamic DT990 Pro. It is an open back phone. I really like these phones, but they are 250 ohms, or at least this particular version is the 250 ohms version. And at 250 ohms, it is kind of hard to drive, so it does take quite a bit on the volume scale to actually drive this guy to a respectable volume. At 50% mark, you feel that you are still missing something. So the bass that is coming out from the easier to drive headphones, they are clean and they are very, very tight. Whereas on the 990 Pro, you probably don't want to play it too loud before the bass starts losing control. So to be safe, if you are spotting the iPod Touch, this particular 7th generation one, I don't have any others to reference to, I would say you should steer well, clear well of headphones that are running above 80 ohms. 80 ohms and below, it should be pretty safe, like this pair of the Sony MDR7506 studio monitors. So finally, I wanted to buy this. When I decided to buy this was when they announced that, they're going to stop production. I went on the Apple website. I wanted to engrave something. So this is what I actually thought of, right? I filled everything up. I wanted to date it. I wanted to say this is the last iPod Touch, or rather, this is the last of the iPods. And I wanted to put my name or the wireless audio file there with the PP initials, P to P initials. But when I tried to check out, they didn't allow it because they're not producing it anymore. So Apple engraving actually happens at the factory. They don't open up a box and they do the engraving in the store or in country. They actually do it at the factory, and because they have already ceased the production, I couldn't get that anymore. I really thought that it would have been really cool if I could engrave this particular two-liners into my iPod Touch, but unfortunately I have a lock, stock, barrel one, very standardized one, but I'm really loving this device. So for those of you who have had some history, who have had a brush with the iPod line of products, be it the Mini or the Classic or the Nano or the Shuffle or even the Touch, do share with us your story, your experience with the iPod line of product that has, after 20 years, after 2 decades, ceased production and there will no longer be any iPod Touch. This is my story. I've gone through a few of them as well. I do remember the Shuffle very, very, very well because I was actually running quite a bit with the Shuffle, and you're just load up the playlist. I think it was 16 gigabyte or 8 gigabyte at the time, and it was good enough to go, right? Finished the run, 1 hour, done. So I look forward to listening to your story in the comment section down below. So if you're going to be sticking around, then I will let you know that I'm going to be primarily using this iPod Touch in a series of tutorials talking about the Sonos S2 platform as well as various Sonos devices, covering things like how to set up your speakers, how to set up your soundbar, how to troubleshoot network issues, how to troubleshoot connectivity stuff, how to use the S2 app, how to get the right sound. And all these tutorials will be using this particular iPod Touch because it runs the Sonos S2 platform. And I will teach it all the way from beginners to slightly more intermediate, and hopefully if I know enough to impart you whatever I know in the more advanced version of those tutorials. I've yet to plan out the whole videos, and I've yet to think about what name to call this series. If you have an opinion, do leave it down in the comment section below, and I will see you and you will see me and this iPod Touch in my next video.